Okay.
Okay, so I'm on the phone. Who am I talking to?
You're speaking with Devin Branch, the legitimate council person for Ward 3, and the leader of the recall election, and the person who had been wrongfully accused of assault of the former mayor of East Cleveland, Gary Norton, and who, about an hour ago, was acquitted by the people of East Cleveland, represented by a jury of 8 members with 1 alternate, a jury of my peers from the city of East Cleveland. And I'm very glad that I decided, and of course there was no question, as you know, from knowing me and having interacted with me during the recall campaign and before, when I was arrested and charged, there was never going to be any question of any compromise whatsoever. You know, I was offered again today a plea deal, basically that this would not go on my record if I pled guilty, and I would just have to attend some anger management courses or something of that nature. But I rejected it on a basis of principle that I should never have been arrested. I should never have been confronted in the manner that I was by Gary Norton, that the actual criminal was and remains Gary Norton in this situation, and his accomplice in that criminality was and remains Willa Hemmons, the person who, in my estimation, is illegally occupying the office of law director, and who is illegally acting to bar me from taking my seat on the council.
And you mentioned about the jury. You had a full jury?
So we had a jury, and when I asked for a jury trial, there was a question raised. Willa Hemmons and even the judge mentioned, who was a visiting judge from Willoghby, you know, the idea that, well, it could be difficult to get a jury in East Cleveland. And I said, well, first of all, that's no fault of mine. You know, I have faith in these people, in the population of the city of East Cleveland, and I wanted my fate to be decided by a jury of my peers drawn from this population, not by any visiting judge. And, you know, I was willing to put my fate in their hands, knowing that I was not guilty, knowing that the people of East Cleveland have the intelligence that when presented with information, full information, to make a correct decision. They can make a correct decision. And so that's what happened today. The people of East Cleveland, represented by the jury, were presented with a case. You know, they weren't really presented with a case. They were presented with an accusation made by Gary Norton. And then they had a chance to weigh the testimony of both myself and Gary Norton. Even though I had no need to testify, because they had not in any way established my guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But nevertheless, I felt responsible to defend my actions, to explain my actions to the jury, having confidence that they had the sophistication to understand. And I was correct.
How many people were in the audience? How many people watched this?
The audience was small. I didn't promote the court date. I didn't let people know that the date was occurring. And I didn't know that the trial was going to happen today. So I was thinking, you know, I was told before about the jury selection. And since hitherto we would go to court and have a different court date for even the most minor of things, I didn't know that the jury selection would be the same date that the trial would begin. So I didn't know I was going to begin trial today. But either way, you know, I was perfectly prepared to go without an audience, especially considering before, you remember the nonsense that Willa wrote to the Ohio Supreme Court, that the people who came out to support me were there as a thinly veiled attempt to intimidate the court. And I had no need to intimidate anybody. You know, I had, you know, truth and justice on my side. And I had no need for any added assistance of intimidation. You know, I didn't have to intimidate people in our community. I have confidence in their ability to reason. So there's no need for intimidation here. They had no case. And so, but because I didn't want any excuses. I didn't want them to come back and say, well, they voted not guilty because there were 50 people in the audience and they probably were scared there was going to be a riot or something. No. I didn't want to give them any excuses. I didn't want them to say, well, if he would have got on the stand, we would have ripped him open and exposed him as being a liar. So I gave them every opportunity to say everything they wanted, to present whatever evidence they had, which was none. And I gave them the opportunity to cross-examine me. And like I said, I didn't tell anybody, really, a handful of people. So there was, Patricia Blahoviak, Art McCoy showed up. There were 6 people, and a few employees of the city showed up. A couple people from the probation office.
It had to be
But there were about 6 to 8 people in the audience.
It had to be a big deal for people to see that we were using the jury booth, because that's been years since we've had a case like this.
Well, people normally plea out, and because it's costly. You know how many times I've had to go before that court since November, and I've had this hanging over my head since November. And when you're accused of an assault, people have an image in their mind sometimes of what assault means. And their image is nothing like what actually occurred. But we had the video. I didn't want to share the video because the city is so small. I didn't want someone to say that we were trying to tamper with the jury, by disseminating the information. So I've been relatively silent on this matter recently, because I didn't want anybody to say, well, I didn't want members of the jury to be disqualified on the basis that they've heard about the trial through social media or anything of that nature. So I was perfectly willing to not promote the video, even though I knew the video would exonerate me.
So where do you go where do you go from here? Because we're running out of tape time. Where are you going? You're running for mayor. What's next for you?
This is the question. And there is a time for petitions to be pulled, but sometime between the 25th, I believe. Petitions can be pulled and circulated between the 25th and the 14th of June. And so there's the possibility of me running for mayor or council are both there. My determination won't be made prior to that, to the approaching of that date. It's a very significant decision to make. I'm weighing the consequences of making either decision very closely, and a lot of that is also informed by what be the dynamic on both the council and with respect to a potential future administration if I decide to run or not run for either office. So there have been a lot of developments that require some reflection, but it is quite likely that I will be running for office. And the question is, will I run for council or will I run for the mayor's office? I believe that I would be